started off really struggling with obesity for a large part of my life. I think I struggled with obesity for maybe close to 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. And it wasn't until I discovered what self-love means that I actually managed to get the weight off, to completely get off that roller coaster ride of losing and always gaining a bit more than I'd lost, and finally got the weight off permanently. And guess what? It's been somewhere between 12 to 15 years since I got the weight off, and I've become a mom since then. I've given birth since then. I've started a business since then. Life has definitely had many, many ups and downs, but because I thoroughly and properly addressed the root cause of my emotional eating, when I got the weight off, it stayed off. And every day I get to wake up, bounce out of bed, and guess what? I love what I see in the mirror. I remember when I used to hate what I see in the mirror, and I used to avoid the mirror and avoid pictures and talk down to myself all the time. And I'm sure you can relate to this. And just in case you're one of those people who comes in and says, "Oh, no, I don't talk down to myself." Well, then let's help you get some clarity around your self-talk, because this is really the key to everything and where you're going to unravel all the answers as to why you're emotionally eating in the first place. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to have a think about the last time you saw a reflection of yourself, or the last time you saw a picture of yourself. And you might say, "Oh, I haven't looked in the mirror for years," or "I refuse to take pictures of myself." And if you do, please make note of that, because the next question I'm going to ask you is, well, would you say that or do that to somebody that you love? For example, if someone that you love walked through the door, would you turn away and say, "I can't look at you. I'm sorry. I can't bear to see how much you've let yourself go"? Can you imagine saying that to somebody, how devastating it would be? And I know right now, without you even needing to call me and answer this question, I know there is no way in hell that you would say that to somebody that you love. Nor would you tell somebody that you love, "Hey, maybe you take this picture instead of being in the picture because you don't look your best right now and you probably don't want to be seen." And yet we say those things to ourselves. Now, if you're somebody who has not been avoiding looking in the mirror for years and you have been looking, then I want you to make note of, what are 5 things that I say to myself when I see my reflection in the mirror or when I see a picture of myself? And you can go ahead and start answering that now, but I've been doing what I've been doing for a very, very, very long time. And not only have I worked with hundreds and hundreds of women, but I used to be this woman. And I know very well the sorts of things that go through our mind and how berating we can be towards ourselves, saying things like, "Oh, you really let yourself go. Oh God, look at the dimples on your thighs. They're disgusting. Oh my God, your thighs are so wobbly. Oh my God, look at your gut. You look like you're 9 months pregnant. How did you let yourself go like this? You're disgusting. You're this, you're that." And these are the things that we say to ourselves silently in our minds. And believe it or not, it's not much different to being in an abusive relationship where you're not actually telling people what's happening behind closed doors. And the things that you say to yourself when you look in the mirror and when you see a picture of yourself, I'm willing to bet that 80% of those things you would not say to somebody that you love when they walk through the door. You would never say to them, "Oh my God, look at the dimples on your thighs. That's disgusting. Oh my God, look at your gut. It's hanging over your pants." You would never do that. And yet we do it to ourselves. Think about that for a moment. Are you going through life, as I did for a very long time before I had my breakthrough? Are you going through life abusing yourself, emotionally abusing yourself? Now, it may not be necessarily around when you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror or see a picture of yourself. It could also be when you eat something that in your mind you think you should not have eaten. So, for example, you wake up like so many women do and go, "Starting today, I'm never drinking wine again," or "I'm never eating chocolate again." And you may do well for a day, 2 days, 3 days, maybe even a whole week. But sooner or later, you do end up having that cookie or that chocolate or that glass of wine. And what do we do then? I want you to ask yourself, what is it that I say to myself after I've had that thing that I think I shouldn't have? Or after I've eaten more than I think I should have? And tune into that conversation. And what you're going to discover is more self-berating. You're going to discover yourself saying things to yourself like, "Oh my God, I knew I would fail. I can't believe I had this cookie. I'm such a failure. I can never stick anything out. I have no willpower at all. I'm destined to be fat. This weight's never going to come off. I may as well eat the entire box of chocolate or the entire row of cookies or whatever it may be. And if you notice, it's generally us driving ourselves into that binge night after night, or weekend after weekend, whatever the frequency is. It always starts with something small. And you know what? We can have a cookie here and there. We can have a glass of wine here and there. But because we put so much restriction on ourselves and use words like, I'm never going to, or starting today, we go to extremes. And then what happens when you have that bite of chocolate or that cookie or that thing that you think you shouldn't have had? You sit there and you berate yourself and you push yourself to a point where it's like, you know what? I've already ruined it. I may as well eat whatever I want because God knows I'm going to restrict myself again starting next Monday. And so from the Thursday through to next Monday, it's just a massive binge because, again, you've told yourself starting on Monday, I'm going to try again and I'm never going to have this thing. And it's not much different to, having that last supper when you say that you're going to diet as though, yeah, you're never going to be able to enjoy good food again. And so we go on this massive binge thinking, this is it. This is my last time. But you and I know very well it is not the last time. And who wants it to be the last time? Food is one of the pleasures of life, and I'm all for enjoying it. Now, of course, we want to enjoy it, but in a balanced way where we can enjoy it and still love our bodies, not enjoy it, but then feel lethargic and feel like we can't move and feel embarrassed to be seen and hide from the world. And so I really want you to start tuning into your self-talk because no one talks to you more than you do every day. Think about that. No one talks to you more than you do every day. And if you're sitting here and you're thinking, what are you talking about, Marlene? I don't talk to myself. I've heard this before as well. Guess what? You're talking to yourself right now. Right now, as I'm talking and you're listening, you are having a conversation with yourself inside your head. And that conversation is ever present. It's happening all the time. From the moment you wake up to the moment that you go to sleep and lose consciousness again, you are having an internal dialogue. And this internal dialogue is really what helps us unravel and understand the root cause of why people have been gaining weight in the first place. And so if you're anything like me, what you'll discover as you start to tune in to, wait a minute, what am I saying to myself? Is one, you realize that there's a lot of self-berating. Two, you're saying things to yourself that you would never say to someone else. And three, there's a huge chance that the things you say to yourself were actually said to you by others who were not so nice to you, or you heard them in your society. So, for example, in school, kids may have made fun of an overweight person that wasn't necessarily you, but you were there observing and kind of absorbing as well the way that people talk to others when they're not at their ideal weight, how rude that can be. And so you've absorbed that. And a lot of what you're saying, you didn't actually make it up yourself. You've heard it elsewhere. And so as part of this journey moving forward, I want to encourage you to have independent thoughts. So that means we're going to need to tune in to what am I saying to myself? Because guess what? 95% of the things that you say to yourself are on autopilot. And a very large percentage of the things you say to yourself on autopilot were not things that you first said. They were said to you, and you inherited those thought patterns or those beliefs. If you sit there and you write down the things that you say to yourself in those moments, and imagine yourself saying those to somebody you love. Like, for example, I can't believe you let yourself go so much. Look at the dimples on your legs. They're disgusting. Look at your tummy hanging over your pants. It's gross. You really shouldn't be wearing that. Nobody wants to see you, or any of those things that we say, or I knew I'd be a failure. I knew I wouldn't last. I have no self-control. Of course, I ruined everything. If you're saying those things to yourself, take a moment to imagine yourself saying that to someone you love when they walk into the room, or when you catch them eating a cookie. Would you turn to them and say, oh my God, I knew you wouldn't last. You're such a failure. Here, eat the entire cake. Here, have the entire box of cookies because you failed already anyway. You may as well wait till next Monday to try it again. I know the answer to that is no. I would never say that to someone else, and yet we're saying it to ourselves. Now let's take it a step further and think about how would somebody you love feel if you said those things to them? If you said all those things that you say to yourself to someone else, it doesn't even have to be somebody you love. It could be a complete stranger. And you know that the impact that would have on them would be devastating. If you said the things that you say to yourself to someone you love, they would be devastated. And chances are they wouldn't want to hang out with you. If you just ripped them a new one and told them, I knew you were a failure, I knew you wouldn't be able to make it, of course you ate the cookie, you never last with anything, not only would they be heartbroken, but they would not want to spend time with you. But guess what? You can't get away from yourself. You can't do it. You are always going to be with you. So if you're constantly beating yourself up and you can't get away from your own abuser, think about the impact of that. Think about what you do when you're feeling stressed or when somebody's put you down. And I'm willing to bet, because I've been doing this for so long, that you're going to say to me, oh, well, I'd probably go eat, or I'd probably go drink an entire bottle of wine, or I'd go close the blinds and shut the door and just hide from the world and cry. And so if we know that this is the impact our words would have on someone else, then it becomes very clear to see the impact of those words on us, even though we've been saying it to ourselves so unconsciously that we haven't really been aware of what we're saying until we put it down on paper and go, oh my God, that is so abusive. I would never say that to somebody. I can't believe I'm saying it to myself. And so one of the first things that we need to do moving forward is we need to set a new benchmark. And that benchmark is, if I would not say it to somebody I love, or even somebody I barely know, then I don't say it to myself. Because the journey to permanent weight loss is actually through self-love. And so many clients come to me and I ask them, why do you want to lose the weight? And they say, because I hate my body, because I hate myself. And that is not a way to move forward. And that's why we always address that first. After the genetic testing, of course, we start to address the emotional things. But if somebody's coming in to lose weight because they hate themselves, think about that. Think about waking up every day and thinking to yourself, I have to go to the gym today and I can't eat carbs today because I have to change this disgusting body. Think about if that's going to be an enjoyable journey. It's not. How can that possibly be enjoyable? What a miserable day you have ahead of you if you wake up in the morning saying, oh, well, today I got to train and I have to eat less because I'm disgusting and I need to change. That's not a way to live life. Nor would that be motivating to you if I woke you up every morning and said, hey, get up, get your ass to the gym because you're disgusting. That would not motivate you in any way, shape, or form. Maybe it would for men, but they're motivated very differently to us. So in short, what you need to understand is this. No one talks to you more than you do every day. And if your self-talk is inherently negative and abusive to yourself, then you are on your own driving yourself into negative emotions and triggering that pattern of turning to food for comfort or things outside of you when you feel those difficult emotions. And so the journey ahead needs to be one of self-love. And I say this all the time. We think that we're unhappy because we're overweight, but really we're overweight because we've been unhappy. And yes, chances are we didn't initiate this unhappiness in our lives, but we are definitely perpetuating it. And we have the power to stop that. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Yes, it can be overwhelming to think, oh God, I'm abusing myself. I need to tune in to what I'm saying to myself. Yes, you do. But it also empowers you and puts 100% of the control in your hands to change your emotional state and change the way that you're doing this entire weight loss journey. Because you don't want to wake up every day thinking, I have to lose weight because I hate myself and I'm disgusting. You want to wake up every day thinking, today I get to. Today I get to lovingly feed myself. Today I get to lovingly move my body because I deserve the best in life. And think about the difference in your day if you wake up saying, today I get to learn to love me more. Today I get to care for my body and nourish my body more, versus waking up and thinking, oh, I hate my life. I hate my body. I have to go to the gym today. I have to eat less so I can change this disgusting body that I'm moving around this world in. Very vastly different journeys ahead of you. And the one of self-love is going to mean that when you have that cookie or when you have that biscuit or when you eat more than you think you should have, rather than beating yourself up and going on a 3 or 4 day binge until you try again, you're actually going to forgive yourself in the moment. You're going to go, yep, I ate that cookie. And you're going to use that to pause and go, okay, there's been an emotional trigger of some sort that's driven me into this autopilot behavior of here I am standing at the pantry with the cookie in my mouth, and I don't even know how I got there. I barely even noticed the conversation in my head that drove me here. And I really, really want to reiterate and re-emphasize this. The only way to permanent weight loss is through self-love, because guess what? Every time that you've turned to food for comfort, what you were really needing was love, or a form of love. And so you've been replacing the love that you've been needing in your life with food or with alcohol or with excessive work or with things outside of you. Like, let me accomplish all these things so I can feel worthy. And yet you still don't feel worthy. So we really need to get this point to sink in. Self-love is the only way to permanent weight loss. So if you're wanting to get off that cycle where you lose and regain more than you've lost over the years, only to give up after the average 17 years that the woman spends dieting, then the first thing I want you to do is tune into your self-talk and start correcting it. If you're saying things to yourself you would not say to a loved one, then you don't say it to yourself. The one thing you can change on your own that's 100% in your control, and that's your self-talk. And we talked about how our self-talk can be quite self-abusive or destructive, and how we single-handedly can drive ourselves into tough emotional states with our negative self-talk, and thus turn ourselves to food or alcohol or whatever it is that we use to numb ourselves. So where did these patterns come from? I know that when I was young, I really grew up in a household where it was not okay to speak up. It was not okay to talk back. It was not okay to even ask for what you want. And so I grew up learning not to do any of those things. And it was necessary for me as a child because my survival depended on the approval of my parents, the people who were looking after me. And that's the case for all of us. Our survival as children depends on the people who are looking after us, whether it's our parents or our grandparents or whoever it is, adopted parents. There are people there who are essentially imprinting their beliefs onto us. And so with me as a child, I grew up teaching myself not to speak up because you would get punished. Don't speak back. Don't state your opinion. Don't go against the grain. Don't ask for what you want. Don't be a burden. Just stay quiet, say yes, do what you're asked to do, and definitely don't complain or talk back. And so you could imagine that, yes, that may have helped in my childhood to get the approval of my father, especially, get good grades, be a high achiever. But in my adulthood years, yeah, sure, the being a high achiever has definitely helped me a lot in life, but there have been so many other things that have been completely detrimental. For example, I'm not just a high achiever, I'm a hyper achiever, which means that I, for a long time, set my self-worth based on my external accomplishments. And that's because, again, for me to receive favor in my dad's eyes, it was based on me getting A's in every single subject. But that's not a way to live life and go through life thinking that I have to constantly achieve, because guess what? We never get to the finish line. We achieve the next thing and we push that finish line or that goalpost even further. We go, oh, okay, I got here. Oh, but I'm still not enough. All right, I guess I have to achieve this next thing to then be enough. So that's a habit that I developed from my childhood. And it stuck with me through my adult years until I did the right work and got myself a coach to help me unravel all these patterns that I didn't realize had turned into patterns of self-sabotage. And that's really what happens for each and every single one of us. We grow up, and between the age of 0 to 7, we develop all these survival patterns. Maybe even we can say from 0 to 14. You are developing survival patterns, things to ensure that you are getting the approval of the people around you, or at the very least, not angering them to the point where they're going to hurt you emotionally or physically or just with their words. And so another few examples of this could be, as I mentioned earlier, you learn not to speak up. You're unhappy, you learn as a child, don't speak up, don't say anything. But then you become an adult and you realize, wait a minute, this pattern of not speaking up, of not asking for what I want, it's actually no longer serving me. Now it's become detrimental. to me in all areas of my life. My relationship is failing because I don't know how to ask for what I want. I'm not happy in my work because I don't know how to speak up. And it's causing all this additional stress in my life that, guess what? It's causing me to turn to food or alcohol or things outside of me for comfort. And again, this pattern of turning to things outside of you for comfort, if you trace back, you will see when this pattern began. For me, it began quite young when my mom was working full time. My dad was also working. Dad was quite aggressive, and mom, bless her soul, would always give me food when she saw that I was sad or upset. And that's just because she simply didn't have the tools to really help me process those emotions. And that's because she didn't have the tools. In fact, chances are 99% of us, our parents, had no clue how to process emotions. In fact, we've come from generations of people that have become experts at not talking about what's wrong, experts at suppressing all emotions and just ignoring. And that's because if you look at not our parents, but the generation before who went through World War II, they've been through a lot of trauma. They've been through periods of real scarcity where they don't even know if they're going to be able to feed themselves and their families or if they're even going to survive the day. And so when you're in that fight or flight survival state, you're not actually giving yourself, nor do you have the opportunity to sit down with emotions and try to actually process them and self-soothe or self-regulate. And so that generation raised our parents who also were not taught how to self-regulate. In fact, a lot of our parents grew up in that time where it was, kids should be seen but not heard. Don't speak up. Across the board, all of us, we were told, don't speak up. Don't ask for too much. Don't talk back. And so we have an entire generation of women who have learned to silence themselves, who have never learned how to say no, who have never learned how to ask for what they want. And of course, this poisons all different facets of our lives. And soon enough, we're coming home from our work feeling drained because we don't know how to speak up and say no or set boundaries. And we come home utterly exhausted to a relationship that's equally as unfulfilling because, again, we don't know how to ask for what we want. And then what do? We zone out in front of the television and we eat food. And the combination of those two things together is an amazing way to completely numb yourself and put yourself almost in a zombie state. In fact, when we eat copious amounts of food, blood drains from our mind and to our digestive system. So we actually can't think as well or as clearly or even tune into our thoughts when we're eating a lot of food, when we're really stuffed. We actually put ourselves in a food coma. Now, couple that with television, where there's less brain activity when we watch television than there is when we're sleeping, and you have the perfect formula for completely numbing yourself, disconnecting from yourself, and suppressing the difficult emotions. So it is my mission here over this next 52 weeks that we have together doing this show, and my mission for every woman that comes into my life through my Self-Love for Permanent Weight Loss program, to help you not just get the weight off with the genetic testing and understanding how to work with your body, but ultimately to keep the weight off permanently. And that's going to be through teaching you what self-love looks like. And self-love is not about turning away from yourself or disconnecting from yourself or suppressing or ignoring yourself. It is the complete opposite. And a lot of us never learned how to do that. And so we're going to learn how to do that today.